So, hi guys, and welcome to the seventh episode of Dreamers and Doers. And today I'm really happy to have Kirsty here. Hi, Kirsty.
Hey, Alex.
So, Kirsty did a few workshops with me, so she trained me a bit to work a bit on my intuition and stop the overthinking, which was a really good work. And yes, I'm pretty excited to have you here, Kirsty. And so my first question was, how did you get interested, especially in intuition and creativity? And and if you've always been in these topics, and I ask you this because for me it's very new, and I think for many adults something that we tend to forget a bit. So was it kind of something pretty natural for you, or quite different from usual?
Yeah, I think it was pretty outside the box for me as well.
Yeah.
So I kind of was going on a journey into the personal development world, and I was doing all sorts of things like neurolinguistic programming. I was getting coached. I was doing work with confidence, body language, all these kinds of things, and nothing was really sticking. I was just like learning a lot. It was very heady, all these kind of regimens of what you're supposed to do and what you should do. And it's kind of, as fate may have it, I stumbled across the intuitive work. And I came across a company called Natural Success, and was working with a guy called William Whitecloud, and also another guy called Ryan Pinnock. So Ryan runs a company called Super Genius in the UK, and William runs a company called Natural Success, and he does trainings and things all over the world. So I was kind of in that personal development junkie mode.
Yeah.
I was like, I need to know it all. I need to have the answers. I need to sort life out, And then I came across this training, and it was sort of like there were these processes that we used that you couldn't deny the power of intuition and creativity. And a lot of people might even go, well, like, what is intuition? Like, what does it mean? Like, how does it work?
Okay.
And intuition is something that can't really be explained or understood from the logical mind. It's actually what we would call non-cognitive intelligence. So that's anything that's outside of the mind. So intuition works based on the intelligence of the heart. It can also be used in terms of your gut instinct. So when we talk about intuition, like, when you get a feeling about something, like it's not right. Yeah. That's your gut instinct telling you, like, don't do it. It's not wind. Like, you should observe it. It's like, I don't want to do this. I don't feel comfortable in this situation. Whereas our intuition is heart-based. And so it's something that we can drop into and feel. So if something feels true, our heart expands. If something's not true, our body kind of restricts and constricts itself. So I know I've kind of gone off on a tangent, which is probably what I'm going to keep doing.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's the point.
But yeah, in terms of have I always been into intuition and creativity? No. But I believe that it's something that's all within us, that we deny or we don't know how to access. But there's nothing that can deny its power. So you have these high-powered executives, and it's like, well, how do they make decisions? Well, they can have all the data or all the evidence in the world, but what it comes down to is they use their intuition to make a decision.
Yeah, there's a classic in personal growth I was reading, which is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And it's kind of like the secret weapon of those, like, what you call successful people, which was like to trust their intuition.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. So like, even some people that I know that work in the stock market, they can read up on all the pieces of information, all the bits of trading data and whatnot, but actually they just do that to, like, appease the masses when they actually use their intuition to make decisions on what they're going to invest money in. Yeah, so having intuition as a skill that you can hone is something that's really important and can be beneficial to your natural success in life.
And how does creativity come into play then? Is it the intuition as a tool for being creative?
Yeah. So when I talk about creativity, it's not like we're going to get a paintbrush and paint a picture, or, we think of creativity in terms of artists. But when I speak about creativity and the relationship that I have with it, it's that us as human beings are creating life, we're creating our reality in any given moment. So using intuition allows us to access greater levels of creativity that we would not otherwise see within the linear perspective of our logical minds.
Yeah, so creativity, that could be like, like start a business, for example, or things that we don't usually think as
creative.
As creative, yeah.
Exactly. So it's like you even create the way that your day unfolds. You can choose to get up and create another shit sandwich, or you can get up and choose to create an experience that you would love. It's just where our attention is. And so when we're able to use our intuition and understand how it speaks to us and how it manifests and reacts in our bodies, we're then able to have greater choice in how we create our own lives. So most people, most humans are not even aware of intuition, let alone how to interpret it. So by accessing it opens up another dimension of our consciousness. If I'm not getting too out there, but in terms of consciousness, intuition is allowing us to access information and solutions outside of our limiting beliefs. Because when we're operating from our minds, which is what we've been conditioned to do, right? The education system tells us that we have to know how things are. We've got to know the process. When actually there's a lot more power in creativity and not knowing what to do and how it is.
And just a quick question, as you were talking about creating your reality, what do you think of the law of attraction? Because that's something that puzzled me a bit. I didn't really know what to think about it. So just the law of attraction, I don't know if I define it well, but it's kind of saying something is going to happen at a certain time. And is it like you repeat it over and over to make it happen?
Yeah. So I think that the law of attraction is a big bag of horse shit. So
that's a key answer.
So there's one thing, right? So this is the thing. As humans, we have a lot of wants. So I want to have millions of dollars. I want to have a big, beautiful house. I want to live by the beach. But is that true, or is that based on an egoic desire, a want or a need to look or feel a certain way, present a certain way? So with the law of attraction, you have people sitting here saying, I like the avocado.
Yes, Mark, former colleague. I was known at Fresh Farm, making avocados.
I've completely lost my train of thought now. I can think I'll just smash avo on toast.
Thank you, Mark.
But it's so with the law of attraction, we have these desires that aren't really true. They're motivated from a place of lack or from fear.
Okay.
So if you're focusing on, I want to have millions of dollars, what you're actually telling your subconscious or telling yourself is that you don't have those things. So it generates more of it, because what we think we're focused on, we're not actually focused on. There's a lot going on in this unconscious level. And so that's what the law of attraction doesn't pick up on. So we say, like I want these amazing things, but they're usually superficial. Maybe sometimes they're not. Maybe you want a loving relationship, but what it doesn't take into consideration is the unconscious, which is all that stuff that's bubbling under the surface that we're not aware of, that's going to take us off what it is that we're truly trying to create. So sitting here making positive affirmations that, I wish for the universe to grant me prosperity. It's like, you can sit there doing that till the cows come home, but you're not going to win the fucking lottery. So
yeah, I've tried. Okay, yeah, that reminds me of Mark. I heard Mark Manson talking about. I know you like Mark Manson too.
Yeah.
About the law of attraction. Be like,
no, it doesn't work. There's far greater forces and factors at play that need to be taken into consideration. So while affirmations might be great in terms of setting a positive mindset for ourselves, they're not going to instantly manifest a mansion or, you know, Aubrey Marcus or whatever our desires may be.
I can understand.
You have a crush on Aubrey as well?
Oh, he's soft.
He's just
So I'll still ask you so this question. So you weren't always into this. So what made you really get into? So you talked about that. Was it a class?
Yeah, I got into some training that was run in the UK. So it was natural success training.
And what made you go to that training?
Like I said, because I was a personal development junkie, and it had some, you know, fancy title about like love, money, and I don't know, something else that I was just like, oh, I want those things. And it was just a meetup, and by chance or not by chance, by fate, whatever you believe. I went along to it, and Ryan, who was the speaker, was really hilarious and engaging. And at the time, I already had a business coach. I was doing my accreditation in confidence coaching, and I was doing my diploma in neuro-linguistic programming. And I was like, oh, you know, I really don't need to be doing something else.
Can you say what's neuro-linguistic programming?
So neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, is it's kind of like, it's a way of understanding or trying to retrain and reprogram the brain, but looking at cues like body language, like it does things around like touching. So trying to manipulate. I find it quite manipulative myself, in terms of trying to make things happen. So it's used a lot in a business sense, but it's something that I didn't really gel with that well. So basically, I guess if I get really vulnerable and honest about it, is that my life was in a kind of a state of emptiness or meaninglessness. And it was like, it didn't matter what I did. It didn't matter what work I undertook. Like nothing felt right. Nothing felt like it was satisfying. And so I guess I was searching for something. And the personal development stuff was falling short. And when I started to understand intuition, creativity, and consciousness, and how we're in control of how we're creating our own realities, that's when I started to really see massive shifts in my life and my enjoyment in it.
Yeah, that's most important. The question after is a bit of a rhetorical one, because I think I know the answer, but do you think we repress our creativity and intuition in our education system and especially Western societies, and how? And how, and let's say also, what can we do about it?
Yeah, so I guess like I touched on before, and I imagine that a lot of people have this same experience, is that our creativity isn't valued as we're children. You know, we make up these stories. Like, do you remember being a kid and like making up the most ridiculous things? Like, I remember telling the whole school that my parents were Luke Perry and Jenny Garth out of 90210. I'm probably showing my age now. But then I would get in trouble for that, right? Because it was a story that I made up that wasn't true. And so we're given all these signs that,
liar.
Yeah, I'm a liar, I'm a fraud, that, you know, these fictional TV characters aren't my real parents. But it's like we make up these stories and they're not valued, they're dismissed. And it's all about being like we need to know the process, we need to know the outcome, we need to know how to do things. And you go through school and you know, the arts, like, you know, drama and music and anything that uses our own free thinking is undervalued compared to science, maths, you know. So we're kind of conditioned to believe that we don't have the answers and that the answers are outside of us. And so then we kind of go on this journey of seeking and needing to know and becoming addicted to knowledge and data and evidence and things like that. So I wholeheartedly believe that our creativity isn't valued through the education system, yet we are all inherently creative. And we have these tools accessible to us at any time, but no one's ever shown us how to access them. So there is a process of needing to relearn or get an understanding of how we can access our own innate.
Is it to relearn or to unlearn?
Yeah, I guess it is. It's like an unlearning of the conditioning that we've experienced and a learning of reconnecting with ourselves.
So how can we do that?
So there are lots of different ways, but primarily it's about coming back to a state of presence and being able to access our imagination, because we're constantly, whether we realize it or not, we're constantly in this state of fight or flight. So we're like, in any kind of interaction we're having, we're always either focused in the future, which is creating that state of anxiety or fear, or we're focused on the past. So what's happened that makes us believe that life is going to be a certain way, which often manifests in depression, right? So it's about coming back to, you know, you've probably heard it umpteen thousand times. It's about coming back to this present moment.
Yeah, the power of now.
The power of now. Yeah, Eckhart Tolle is not a thought leader for no reason. A spiritual guru or whatever you want to say. But it's about starting to come back to the body, come back to the breath. And rather than just going on autopilot and how you would usually go about your day, how you usually go about something, which is always skewed through the lens of our limited experience. It's about, being present with things, listening to, like what I was saying before, this non-cognitive intelligence, the intelligence of the body. Start to hone those, like, I guess, hone feeling. Because when we feel, our body doesn't lie. So if it's something, you know, maybe there's an activity that's going ahead, maybe it's a friend's party and you're like, oh, I don't know whether I want to go. Like, your logical mind might be like, well, I should go because they're my friend and I don't really have anything else on, and what would they think if I didn't go? Whereas asking yourself, well, how does my body feel in this situation? Do I feel excited? Do I feel light? Do I feel expansive? Or do I feel restricted and heavy? And, you know, and it's about starting to listen and pay attention to those cues that are outside of the realm of our mind. So that's a really good way to practice intuition. Another way is a little bit more mystical. And it's using circles.
Well, that's what we did.
Yeah, I know, we did in training. So we use circles in alchemy because we can define a circle as an empty space. So it's got no beginning, no end. So if you want to find out about anything, you draw an imaginary circle and then you define it as what you want to find out about. So, you know, maybe you've got a crush on some chickie babe and you're like, oh, I want to find out what's going on with her. And you can draw a circle around it and define it as like, what's going on here. And obviously your mind's going to want to come in and tell you, oh, well, she thinks that I'm awesome and like, we're going to be together and it's going to be great. But if you take a moment to come into that state of presence, coming back to your breath, and a lot of it is about intention. So wanting to set an intention to find out the truth about a situation or a person or an activity or whatever it may be. And then allowing yourself to completely let go of the need to know. And you can do this with using a golden ball of light over your head that you empty out all your ego. Or the one that we like doing was the one about becoming a small child, or becoming
a baby.
becoming a baby, because when we were children, when we were young babies, young children, we didn't have all these lenses, all these judgments, all these fears. So when we come back to that state, even though it's just imaginary, the subconscious doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not. So if we're sending a message to our subconscious that we're coming into a state of pure innocence, where we're free from our judgments, our thoughts, and our feelings, we then become an empty vessel to receive information from a higher source.
Yeah, that reminds me of some activities I've done recently, almost as therapies, like laughter yoga, or even like ecstatic dance, or those things where you're like, you feel a bit ridiculous, but you learn to not judge yourself and being a child, which I thought were really cool.
Exactly. It's all about letting go. So when we let go of what we think we know, then it allows us to access new levels of creativity, new solutions. We get to see the truth in a situation. So the circles, fantastic way for just stepping into whatever you want to find out about and getting that download of information.
Yeah, I'll get I hope you're still here, Lucas. Sorry, but thanks for the question. And Lucas goes, that's a really good one. Are women better at using their intuition? And yeah, that's a good one, because I feel when I do these activities, I almost reconnect more with what you would call feminine part, even the creativity one. So are women better at using their intuition? If so, is there some scientific evidence to prove it? How can we account for such difference at a gender level?
So Lucas, I don't have any scientific data to back this up in my mind, but what I do understand is that women are generally more intuitive than men, but that's not to say that men can't be intuitive. So intuition is, if we talk about energies, we have masculine and feminine energy, and intuition is the feminine component. But everyone, men and women, have masculine and feminine in them. But it's just that, generally speaking, and I'm sure there's evidence and scientific stuff to back this up. Maybe I can find it and send you links post this live feed. But yeah, that women generally are able to access intuition easier because they're more right brain orientated, and men, and the masculine energy tends to be logical and rational and things like that. So it does take will to give up that control and that need to know, and like needing for things to be a certain way. Whereas when we access intuition, it is very much about trusting in this really unfamiliar process that speaks to us in symbols and sensations rather than thoughts and feelings in the English language. So that's another little thing to add, is that intuition, it doesn't speak to us in English, so to speak. It because that's been taken by our egos, right? Because when the voice in our head, it's always talking to us, speaks to us in English, or whatever other language is your first language, in French. But intuition takes it speaks to us in maybe a sensation, or maybe it's a symbol, or maybe it's an image that we need to decipher. And so it's kind of got its own language. So I don't know how to account for the gender difference, other than just suggesting that by setting an intention to get it. And it's like when you go to the gym, right? And you keep flexing that muscle. See, I've got like huge muscles here. Um, but yeah, the more you use your intuition and try these intuitive processes, the stronger that muscle gets and the easier it is, and the more likely you are to trust it. Because another thing which I know you found, Alex, is that how do you trust your intuition? Like, you know, how do you know that it's true? And sometimes, well, a lot of the time we don't know. We don't know how things are going to plan out. But when we follow through on our intuition, we start to see things magically unfold in life. Whereas when we resist it and when we go into our minds and approach things how we think we should, we have a much harder life. Things become a struggle. And often, you know, our intuition might be speaking to us and we don't realize it. And then we go ahead with what our mind wanted us to do. And afterwards we go, oh no, I knew I shouldn't have done that. Oh, I had that feeling that, you know, I should have done it this way. Yeah. So it's just a process of continually trusting it and seeing it through.
And that process, how much do you use your mind? Because I guess there's sometimes still, like, let's say my heart wants to do the business, but I want to do the business plan. Then, like, I still use the mind as a tool at some point. Like, what's a good balance?
Well,
it's a hard question.
It's one of, I mean, the mind. I'm not going to get the quote right, but it's like, I think it was Einstein that said it, that the mind is a useful servant to the heart. Because your mind can give you the practical steps, and we need our minds, we need our egos. They give us orientation. We need logic and reason, but we also what has far greater intelligence is that of the heart. And so it's if you get like a I don't know, if you sense energy, if there's like a positivity, if there's a expansion, like I was saying before, around something, that you honor that, and then using the mind afterwards to help fulfill that vision.
Okay, yeah.
So I would always say, listen to the heart first, and then allow the mind to help you develop and devise the strategies and the obvious actions to fulfill that vision and carry it through.
Okay, well, guys, if you have more questions, definitely go for it. And is there anything you wanted to add? Maybe on the practice, like maybe some example, like practical situations where people can start using their intuition for, like, maybe business wise, or like how can it help them in the everyday life? I mean,
yeah,
you talked already quite a bit about it. But
no, that's all right. So it's really about, again, like I was saying, it's about where our focus is. So having an understanding about what it is that you want to create, but also acknowledging all the things that your thoughts and your feelings are throwing up at you. So say you want to start a business and you're really excited about it. It's something that you've always dreamt of doing. And then the mind comes in and tells you, like, you don't know what you're doing. You haven't run a business. You don't have enough money. You don't have enough time. What will your father think? You know, all these types of things. Just taking stock of that. Because what is one of the biggest, you know, the most positive things you can do for yourself is to become the observer. So when we're not, unless we're observing the thoughts and the feelings and everything that's going on, we're in it. And as soon as we're in it, then we get into these spirals. So the mind is really clever at convincing us that there's all these things that we need to do before we can have this one thing that we want. So when we start to go for something, when we go for something that we would love, to just really observe what's coming up in our thoughts and our feelings, because that's our ego's way of keeping us small and contained within the comforts of the confines of our comfort zone. So I guess in terms of using intuition when it comes to business, it's about allocating our will and choosing to create this, you know, this successful, fun, enjoyable business, and then just taking stock of all the things that your mind's coming up with that tells you that that's not possible. And then choosing what it is that you would love. Because if we talk about everything being energy, all this kind of self-depreciating like words and I guess it's kind of like self-abuse. That is a much lower vibration than the things that we love, because we would love to create them, not because we believe we want or need them, that we would just love to create for the sake of creating them. So yeah, being the observer, acknowledging all the shit that your mind's throwing up at you, and then choosing that vision of what it is that you would love to create, regardless of the other stuff. But if we don't check what our mind is throwing up, if we don't check our unconscious, that stuff is ultimately going to create struggle and demise of our dreams and visions. That's a bit bleak, isn't it? But,
yeah, this one.
But a lot of, so there's an author, his name's Neil Donald Walsh. He wrote the book series Conversations with God.
Okay.
And he says that 98% of human energy is wasted. And that's because what we believe we need to do is based on resolving our wounding and fixing things within ourselves that we believe need to be there before we can have what we want. So it's really about understanding and having an understanding about all the ways in which we feel incomplete in ourselves and taking that into account. Acknowledging that that's happening rather than going, oh, no, it's fine. I don't want to look at that dark shit. Yeah. No. It's going, okay, this is here, but this is what I would love, and I'm choosing to create that.
Yeah. It makes me think also of, when you talk happiness and not being like too just rejecting any negative emotions. And usually that doesn't work very well. And because, you talked about that book. Had a last question, so guys, if you want to ask a last question, go for it, but otherwise I'll go. Is there like one or two books you'd really recommend on that subject for people to get more information on?
Yeah, so there is a phenomenal guy who talks all about creativity and the creative structure, and his name is Robert Fritz, and he wrote a book called The Path of Least Resistance. And it's all about how creativity works. And it talks about consciousness, but it's also, it's about creating a structural tension. Because when we talk about creativity, when we engage in creative activities, we need attention, because tension seeks resolution. And it's whether our tension is being resolved through our psychological beliefs. So maybe I've got a belief I'm not good enough. And so my psychological tension around that might make me do more courses or, network more, like things to make myself be good enough. Whereas when we bring that into the structural dynamic of creating, it takes the power out of it, and then we can create what it is that we're wanting to. So that's a lot of what Robert Fritz's work is on, but it's all around creating, and it's phenomenal. In terms of books on intuition and magic, I would suggest, so my coach and mentor, William Whitecloud, has a book called The Magician's Way, which talks about the 7 principles of magic. And for me, when I came across this, about 3.5 years ago, that was a real game changer for me. So Robert Fritz and William Whitecloud, and then also a dear friend of mine, Dr. Kaushik Ram, has written a book called Hidden Worlds, The Inside Story of the Soul. And that is another fantastic one about understanding non-cognitive intelligence. And he's a remarkable neuroscientist. So, so they would be the three books that I would recommend in this space. And one more, there's another one called Letting Go by David Hawkins. And that's, that's an amazing That's an amazing one. All about letting go of outcomes and surrendering to the process.
Okay, well, thanks for this. Kaushik Ram, I'm reading his book at the moment. I'll probably be doing an interview soon, so that'll be really cool. Really interesting guy. And there is a last question from Andrew.
Hey, Andrew.
Yeah. What would be a good daily practice to start strengthening our intuition?
So
maybe something like
as simple as setting an intention for the day. So how do you want your day to be? What is it that you ultimately want to create? So in the morning, just taking some time to, like, first thing when you wake up, coming back to the breath so that you're out of your head, letting go of the need to know, and just draw that circle and define it as how you want your day to be. And just sense what that's like. So get a feeling of, maybe it's a sense of calm, maybe it's joy, like really feel the sensation in your body about what it is that you want to create, and then choose to create that. So say, I choose the end result of my day being joyful, and then let go and just see how, because it's not about the process, it's about the intention. So if our focus is on what we want to create, and then we let go, that ultimately happens.
And like you said, that intention, but not that much the plan to achieve that intention.
No plans to achieve it. Just
stuff.
I know, because the mind wants to know how it is. But it's really about our focus creates our reality. So in terms of strengthening our intuitive muscle, it's focusing on what we truly want to create, not what we think we need to create to get what we want, what we truly want to create. And by continually coming back to the body and setting these intentions, we're able to then see how life becomes a lot more effortless. We don't need to work it all out. It's just like, this is what I would love, and you know what? That's what I'm focused on. This other stuff might be going on. I acknowledge that that's there. I might have work deadlines. I might be having a fight with my partner. All this stuff might be going on. But you know what? That's cool. I acknowledge it, but I focus on creating joy in my day and just see how that unfolds. So rather than buying into the drama of life and all these perceived problems that we have, it's making a conscious choice in using our will to create what we would love.
Okay, so I'll put in my calendar now to do that every morning, like for 3 days. And I think something anyone can do, right?
Yeah.
And they can then can't hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
And judge for themselves.
Yeah, see how it goes. Our focus creates our reality. So keep focusing on what you love without denying the reality of your life. Acknowledge that it's there. Don't buy into it. Assign your will to what you love and create it. So that's intuition and creativity.
I think we can finish on this. That's pretty cool.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Kirsty.
You're welcome, Alex. Thanks, guys. It's been fun.
And thanks, guys, for the questions. And yeah, there'll be the video available then on the page, Dreamers and Doers. Don't forget to like the page. Cheers, guys.